Well, hello. How are y'all doing? Oh, on my gaming laptop, I was actually finally able to get it to working good again. I spilled like tea or something on it, and it got all gunky. Keyboard still sticks a little bit, but it runs good. At least for now. I'm not using my normal webcam or microphone, so video and audio is probably a little bit crap, but what's going on, Valerie and Samantha? Hello, Mama. How you doing? I hope you are all doing well. I'm set up on my lap here. I wonder, I'll try something. Oh. I'll sit you there. Oh yeah, that's perfect. New room. Well, one of my coworkers put me up for a few days until I finally get paid and I'm able to get a place. Things you think of after you go live. Very awesome guy for doing that. Yeah. So we'll see. It's good to see you all here. Thanks for stopping by. Maybe we'll do a couple spoopy stories. I don't know. But I figured I'd let everybody know how my trip went and that I am still alive. Yeah. It is what it is. Everyone. If everyone hasn't muted me in the Discord already, I just added everybody again. Yeah, so let's figure out. I'm not doing 2 screens, so it's gonna be kind of hard to switch screens here. But give me a second here. I can't see what y'all are saying. No sleep. Ready? No sleep. Alright. That's my mama, Yandere. It sure is. Every time I fall asleep in the dark, I wake up somewhere else. Well, that hits a little too close to home, doesn't it? It's not too bad. We can read this one. Why did I escape? Because maybe I knew something was coming. No, I didn't know anything was coming. Because unfortunately, as much as I love Texas, I missed my jet. And to keep you all in the loop, the job I have is very awesome. The Air Force people are very kind. Just like I remember makes me wish we're still in sometimes, but I'm out now, so I'm not, it's nice having long hair and facial hair around those guys. It's really funny. But, hey, Alex. And hey, Chevy Fish, if I haven't said hi to you, sorry. But yeah, so I drove like, let's think here. So like, I got off that Wednesday. This is before the ice storm, and it iced. It iced decently, like not a whole bunch, but it melted. I went and got my alignment done on my car, and I remember sliding it. And yeah, I got my alignment done, and I was there for probably 2 hours or something, 3 hours. I came back, and I kind of half-heartedly started tearing stuff down, but I didn't want to. I was like, I'll do it all on Thursday. So then Thursday came. My roommate had got the U-Haul. He and I went and got the U-Haul, and I finally had to pack. So Thursday night I finished. Yeah, it probably took me like 8 hours to pack everything and get it all like situated. Went and put it in the storage unit. Friday, Thursday I packed. That's right. Thursday I started packing. Friday is when that's right. Friday is when I went and dropped my stuff off at the unit. I went out that night with some friends. I had a nice little going away. And I woke up Saturday. And, my roommate woke me up. And we had to get his stuff from his old units and move it into his new units. That was part of the deal. He would store my stuff for a little while if I helped him with that. So I did that. And then I probably left around 5 or 6 p.m. on Saturday. And I called my cousin beforehand. And he's like, hey, don't take the back roads to go to Amarillo. Because I had to take Highway 40 all the way across to come to Oregon. He said, don't take the back roads. Go up north to Oklahoma City and then take 40 across. I said, fine. I left that night for Oklahoma City. I got there around, 9 or 10. I passed out, and there was no ice or anything. And then I woke up to my Mustang covered in snow and 3 inches on the ground, and that was a little bit sketchy. Got on the road and started driving. That night I made it to, let's see here, Albuquerque. Yeah, okay. So I drove 543 miles on Sunday. Yeah, 543 miles to Albuquerque, New Mexico on Sunday. Let me double check that. So I already started taking pictures. Where's it at? Where's my middle finger? That was on the 14th. So the 14th was... Yeah, that was on Sunday. So Sunday I drove 543 miles through ice and snow, and oh my God, freaking terrifying. And I stayed there. And then I drove from Albuquerque on Monday. I drove from Albuquerque to right outside Reno. That was 395. Let's see here. I really made time. Um, yeah, so I basically drove on Monday. Um, I drove 1,000 and roughly 40 miles from Albuquerque through Arizona, through Flagstaff, through Las Vegas, and then through Reno, and made my way to this little bitty rest stop in California. And I was dog tired. I was done. And I passed out, had my little blanket, and I rearranged all the stuff in my car, and I put my seat back and I passed out for a few hours. And my boss called me at like 6 in the morning. He's like, "Hey, did you make it?" I'm like, "Oh, you don't understand. I just drove 1,000 miles yesterday, and the day before I drove 500 miles through ice and snow, and in a Mustang, no doubt, rear-wheel drive." The bad thing is when I drove that 543 miles, I needed tires. The 1,000 miles through no ice and snow, I didn't need tires, but I had them by that point. So yeah, I woke up and I was at that rest stop in California. I was probably only about 4 or 5 hours away, and talked to my boss. He's like, "Yeah, just come on through, and we'll get you set up on Wednesday or whatever." Because by the time I got there, it was going to be too late. But I pulled up to Klamath Falls, and it's I went through Modoc National Forest, and I saw deer, and someone ran over a skunk, and it was fresh. It was so that was probably the worst part of it, besides the the weather. But yeah, I pulled up and drove around the town a little bit, just trying to figure things out. And yeah, I got here on Tuesday, and it was cool. I got to touch my jet, and it was a little bit funny. I immediately got questioned about the jet, and I was like, "Yeah, I think it's this, this, and this." And they had to check the books, and like, "Oh yeah, that's right." But it was really cool. Touching my jet and climbing around it and opening old panels and be like, "Oh, that's my system and that's my system." And they explained to me the job and stuff, and it was really cool, and I'm happy. But it's pretty much Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. Every other week you get a day off, an extra day off. And then you have your holidays and stuff, and yeah. We did have a snow day just the other day, like 3 days ago, I think. That was utterly terrifying. Worse than the 500 miles. I was going up steep inclines like this in the Mustang with my wheels turned like this way, or no, my wheels are turned straight, and my car was going sideways. So like these are my wheels, and my car's going like this, and I'm spinning the tires. And then I had to go down this long stretch with ice and stuff. And I just put it in first gear because you can't really use your brakes in the snow. It was absolutely terrifying. But yeah, I'm here. I'm alive. Yeah. So yeah, Dallas, all of Texas, pretty much had a freak. All of America, apparently up to Albuquerque, I think, had a freak snowstorm, like three freaking storms just collided and messed up Texas. Do I have a snow brush? No. I use my hands. The snow that landed in Texas, all that was like white fluffy snow. It was probably the best snow to have, but it's still snow, so it's stupid. The weather here is pretty much perpetually 30 degrees. I don't know if y'all can see that. Yeah, it's like that's my forecast. Yeah, 48, 43. We're gonna hit a high of 48 tomorrow, so that's cool. Yeah. Do I have a snow brush? It's under my nose. Oh man. Hey, what's going on, Nicholas? Odie's, what's going on? Sorry I didn't say hi to you. Gem Tari, I heard the temps were getting 2 gold for now. Insulation had the house down here. Peeps be freezing, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, my heart goes out to all the families that got displaced and stuff, and that's really, really sad. And I totally love Texas. I'm like, peace, I'll be back in a couple years. But yeah, so the gig I'm doing is a couple years. So there's that. So I'll be here for a little while, but maybe I can save up a couple pennies and come back and get a nice place. But yeah, so I look tired. I'm not tired. I've been sleeping way too much because sleep is free. You don't have to spend money to sleep. I just ate a little dinner, had some McDonald's. I guess if I get really bored, I've got my Tito's. I don't have anything to mix it with. I'm not mixing it with my sweet tea. That sounds disgusting. I was wiped out after all that driving. It took me a couple days to get normal. But for the most part, I'm used to stuff like that. It only takes me a day or two to just get back with it. But anyways, yeah, so here I am. I don't know if you guys want a spoopy story or not, but I think I have one queued up. It's called Every Time I Fall Asleep in the Dark, I Wake Up Somewhere Else. Hey, Holly. Hey, Christian. Oh. Yeah. So, let's do this. Nope, stop that. I don't have a mouse, but that's fine. You're scared. Oh, you don't want to be scared. Well, okay, maybe a little. So let's bring this a little bit closer. Make sure I'm still in shot here. How was the move tiring? I don't want to go through all of it again, but if you go back to the last 20 minutes, I talk about it. I'm glad it's done. Now I just gotta find me a place to live. Like I said earlier, one of the guys I work with, really awesome guy, put me up for a few days until I can get a place. But yeah, so here's the story. Yeah. Let me post this. This is for what we're going to be reading. If you like the story, please go on Reddit and give the person an upvote. They would greatly appreciate that. I should do some ghost video reactions. I don't know how to do that, but maybe. Alex, we'll have to talk later. I have an idea. I want to start doing new videos. But anyways, let's do this story, huh? It's been going on since I turned 15. I went to bed on the night of my birthday, and the next day, I was 3 states away at a summer camp for elementary school kids. Fortunately, nowhere dangerous, and everyone was startled and confused as myself. My parents were worried sick, of course, although back then, I already had a cell phone. It wasn't in my possession. It wasn't in my possession when I fell asleep. I had no way to contact them. Just had a vague idea of how far I had been. A nice older lady decided to drive me back, just to have me disappear again as I fall asleep in a dark car on a dark road. This time, however, Lady Luck had me waking up in a supermarket on the outside of my own town. Super awkward, but at least safe and near. My feet were horribly sore when I made it home, but otherwise I was fine. When I told my parents what had happened, they had no choice but to believe me. First of all, we were quite the average family, and I was never rebellious. And secondly, my father's mother, who died when he was a kid, had the same condition. I'm sorry, Jane. I think it runs in the family. But I don't have it, or my brothers, so I assume it only affects women. Or it skips a generation. Anyway, we probably shouldn't have biological kids in the future. It was a relief to have answers, somewhat at least. Do you know what triggers it? Your grandmother herself never understood it fully, but my father, well, he kept a diary about it. Years after her death, he was able to connect the dots. We were almost certain that it only happened when she fell asleep in the dark. Well, I did fall asleep in the dark the last 2 times. I'm the older girl of the family in my generation, the guinea pig. I established some rules for myself. First of all, I'd only fall asleep during the daytime, unless it absolutely couldn't be helped. In that case, I'd sleep with all the lights on, always wearing clothes with pockets, so I could take at least my cell phone and some money with me. I'd never fall asleep somewhere people could turn off the lights while I was sleeping. While these rules are really helpful, so I can live a nearly normal life, simply applying them isn't completely foolproof. It's a guarantee that a mere 98% of the times I fall asleep and wake up in the same place, safe and sound. But the 2% is often troublesome. It's been 20 years since my strange power, or curse, first manifested, and 146 awful times waking up not knowing where I was. Most of them were trivial. I ended up a lot in houses where I didn't belong, storage facilities and camping. I had my fair share of being mistaken by a mistress, being mistaken by a homeless person breaking into some store, and being mistaken by a corpse. Those caused a lot of headaches, but it was temporary. By the end of the day, I was back with nothing more than an annoyance, and usually a few dozen dollars poorer. More than once, I woke up next to a dangerous man. I learned my lessons quickly, and after getting away with screaming bloody murder once, I knew there wouldn't be a next time when I wouldn't be so lucky. I started boxing, and my pocket now contained an extra item, a small gun. Weirdly enough, I'd made friends for life. No more than two, but they were all the unkind strangers. But not the times that I was in danger of losing my life or something worse. Absolutely nothing good in the world can make up for that. Two awakenings stayed with me forever. They make my blood feel like tar when I remember them. January 13th, 2007. I had my first episode of Labyrinthus the night before I passed out. No one knew my condition was around when I was sent to the hospital. It's not like I can share it with everyone I know. I woke up in a filthy room filled with both teenage girls and young women. They were all looking at me, terrified. A single incandescent lamp poorly lit the small prison. They were talking in a language I didn't know, but despair is a universal form of communication. I had joined 14 victims of human trafficking. I still think about them. I still think that I could have done more, but I was afraid, and my awareness that a handgun didn't make me invincible against some of the worst horrors of the world. They were so malnourished, their faces so dirty. They thought I was an angel, an all-powerful godsend that would protect and free them. Fortunately, two of the girls knew English enough to hold a conversation. Most of them were Turkish. All of them were Asian. I asked them a lot of questions regarding their identities and location and promised to send help. The room wasn't being monitored the whole time, but I didn't want to spend another minute in that hell if I could afford it. So after 2 hours, I shot the lamp and forced myself to sleep. I woke up somewhere else. Not home, of course. I did everything in my power to report what I saw to the police. They were never found. They trusted me, and I failed them. Maybe my second terrible experience was punishment for that. January 28th, 2021. I was staying with my parents, with some other relatives. I took all the usual precautions, but apparently a closed door is not enough to stop some people. Someone must have noticed that I had the lights on and entered my bedroom to turn them off while I slept. It sounds ridiculous, but when I woke up again, I didn't even know if I was on the same planet. The air was stale and suffocating. The voice that spoke to me was only inside my head. It sounded both like a swarm of insects and like metal being screeched. An overwhelming darkness covered the whole place. I couldn't even establish if I was inside a building or outside. You must be wondering where you are, as usual. The voice startled me, shaking me to my very core. So I didn't say anything. It knew I was there, but it didn't need to know anything else. This is the ending of all things. This is where the light comes to die, the voice explained. I felt like I was being mocked, but the tone was neutral and personal. Come on, try to shoot me. the voice commanded, and I felt an irresistible urge to do so before my brain processed it. My hands were already wielding the gun. The shot produced no flash or sound. Why? I tried to speak, but I had no voice, still. It could hear me from inside my head. As I said, this is the ending of all things. Sound can't exist. Nothing can exist. Nothing can access this place without instantly disintegrating. Just you and me. Do you know for how long I've been searching for you? I don't want to be here, I replied, dryly in my head. That's not your choice. The voice was not hostile. It was simply stating a fact, as if telling me that the sky is blue, or that it rains a lot in Seattle. Whose choice is it then? Who are you anyway? It's just the way it is. I'm a sentient black hole, and your ancestor. Your destiny is to come back to me. It was your grandmother's, but she took her life before I could reach her. Then I'll do the same, I replied, ready to shoot myself in the head. The bullet ricocheted like rubber. Here, you are eternal, untouchable. Isn't that nice? No, it's not nice. I just want to live a normal life. Not to exist forever inside a pointless, oppressive void. I'm coming back home, I replied. You can't run. You can't hide, darling. Except that you can't run. You'll always fall asleep in the darkness from now on. These words carried a menace that I never felt before. More than afraid, I was paralyzed by the idea of a dull, pitch-black eternity, never able to die or escape. I didn't know how long I spent there giving the ancestor the silent treatment. I just know that at some point I started to imagine the light. I pictured my bedroom window being filled with blissful, fearless sunlight. It felt so vivid that I almost could feel the warmth. And it seems that I imagined it so well that I was able to cheat the system and return home. I wasn't even somewhere random or at my parents', but back in my own apartment. But my joy was blown to smithereens as soon as I found a note crumpled in my pocket. Your trick won't work twice. The next time you fall asleep in the dark, I'll reclaim you forever, dear daughter. Yes, you can put stories on Reddit if you want. So Chappy is a pet. I don't think anyone actually likes packing up and moving. Who writes these stories? Can anyone just write a story on Reddit? Yes, I suggest looking up Ron White 1989. You try to tell me he doesn't look like Chappy. That's messed up, but funny. But yeah, so I thought that's a fun story. Anybody else? How are you guys doing? I don't know. I'm thinking about cutting it all off, shaving this all off. I don't know. I don't think I will though. Maybe trim this though. You miss me? I'm right here. I'm always right here. Or you miss the idea of me being in the same city as you. You're busting your butt trying this cartoon style. Quincy the Fancy Owl. Chappy! Hey, how you doing? I like that story a lot. Oh shoot, I'm not logged in. Thank you so much for joining my first official watch party. You're very welcome. Sorry I missed your second one. Did I say something? Quincy the Fancy Owl. No, sorry, I messed up your name. This one says, this story says, my friends and I were hired to break into a house, but out of the 3 of us, only 4 made it out alive. This sounds confusing. Let's give it a shot, maybe. We'll see if it's too long. You watched the Simpsons movie? Aww. Oh, this one's a long one. That's a long one. Maybe we'll go back to that later. Alright, we're putting the laptop on my belly and kind of stretching out a little bit. There we go. Let's see what this looks like. Yeah, that's good enough. Check the walls. They meet. My guardian creatures saved me from being abducted. The choice experiment. Memories can and will be modified by the inconscious mind. My girlfriend died yesterday. Don't let it in. Have I read Don't Let It In? Oh, this one's a healthy one. Let's give it a shot. I need a headrest. This isn't doing it for me. Oh well. Beggars can't be choosers. Maybe we'll do that one. That looks good. Let's see what else we got. My uncle left me a shifty little bar of his will. This is the last time I saw the little girl who beat me up. You went to Chili's? Just kidding, I wish. I went to McDonald's today. Oh, I told you guys that I would try to stream on the road. Yeah, stupid me for lowering my phone. I ran out of data. My GPS was even really crappy. So, there was no way I could stream on the road. The vegan experiment. I got paid heavily to organize a rich family's closet. but I had to follow really weird conditions. It's one of those. Those are sometimes fun. Where they tell a rule and then it's like a stupid rule, but then they go through the whole story and be like, oh yeah, do you remember that rule? Okay, well, let's do the Don't Let It In. Here's the Linky Poo. Because I know you guys love these stories. And y'all always go behind me and upvote them. You like it. Pretty good story. So this is the next one. You know words are hard, so if you want to read along, be my guest. Can y'all hear me alright? I barely look like I'm moving my lips, yeah. I barely look like I'm moving my lips. Yeah. Alright. Story's called Don't Let It In. Please let me in. I'm so cold. Growing up, my best friend was Matthew Ramsey. He was a year older than me, but still in my same grade. Not because he was stupid, because his father had died and he's in the 4th grade. And for a few months, Matt was having a lot of problems at home and at school. When he got held back and put in my class, we became fast friends. And it wasn't long before I was spending more time at his house than my own. Matt's mom was always nice, but she was also working most of the time. So that meant we would wound up hanging out with Matt's uncle, Gene, more than anyone else. He left us to our own devices most of the time. But if we were having a sleepover and Matt's mom had left a late shift, Jean would come over and keep an eye on us until she got home. Those nights are some of my favorite memories of my childhood. Hanging out with my best friend while his cool uncle cooked us hamburgers and told us stories he'd lived or heard during his 20 years of traveling the world in the Army. He was retired on disability when I knew him. And just looking at a pot-bellied, gray-haired man swinging a beer while absently poking at the grill, I had a hard time believing he'd ever been a soldier, much less the globe-trotting adventurer he told us about in his stories. But when he settled down and started talking, everything seemed to magically change. Unlike a lot of adults, he seemed to understand and appreciate what we wanted to hear and were interested in. Tales of battle and exotic lands, guns and tanks, interesting people and dangerous creatures. As we spent time with him, I felt sure that he had run out of stories, but he never did. In fact, in the last years I knew him, he started telling us some of the strangest tales I had ever heard of. If it was someone else, I'd have immediately written these stories off as fantasy, increasingly elaborate and sensational stories to entertain his maturing and potentially jaded audience of 2. But Gene wasn't really that kind of guy. He was a good storyteller, but he was honest, and never got the sense that he was embellishing anything beyond putting a slight polish on a potentially dull tale. While I can't say for sure that much of what he told us wasn't bullshit, what seemed clear to me now is that one of his stories probably saved my life. This was when I was about 12 and Matt had just turned 13. We were going to go camping in the woods right behind Matt's house. Gene had come over to hang out until we went to bed. He'd made a small fire in the pit in the backyard, and after dinner we all sat around it, staring into the fire while he told us about the time he'd spent stationed up in Alaska. He said for the most part it was just cold and boring. The towns up there were small and the people, while pleasant enough, tended to keep to themselves. And the land was beautiful, but in an alien, almost hostile way, made him pine for the warm, dry hills of Arizona, where he'd been stationed for years before his latest assignment. His job there wasn't even interesting, just handling requisitions and hanging out with his boss, who spent most of his time drunk or asleep. Still, he told us, when his boss was awake and not too far gone, he was a pretty cool guy. He'd tell Gene stories about the people up there, local histories, myths and legends. And it was from that Gene had heard about the woman that would sometimes come to your door asking to be let inside because it was very cold. The way my boss told it, he was working at a weather outpost north of Anchorage when a big snowstorm came in and had supplies for a few days, but the third night he was starting to get nervous. He'd lived up north for a few months by that point, but this was the first time he'd really felt trapped by the weather. Between the increasing snow and isolation, he admitted to letting out a scream when he heard a knock at the door. My boss wasn't no rocket scientist, but he wasn't a fool neither. He knew no one would be around for 20 miles or more, and the odds of someone being out there in that kind of weather at night, it just made no sense. His first thought was that it was someone come to relieve him for some reason. But as he approached the door, he heard what sounded like a young woman's voice on the other side. "Please, let me in. It's so cold." This threw him off. There were no young females enlisted locally that he knew of. And the more he thought, he realized he would have gotten a message beforehand if someone was coming up tonight. So who could this be? Heart pounding, he answered, "Ma'am, who are you?" "I'm cold and lost. I got lost in the storm. Please let me in." It was so strange, but she sounded scared. And if he left her out there for much longer, she was apt to freeze to death. Still, 2 feet of snow had fallen since he cleared the front door earlier in the day. If he was going to let her in, he needed to get out there with a light and shovel to clear away. "Okay, give me just a minute. I'll be out there." He put on his outerwear and headed up to the ladder to the roof of the hatch. That was mainly used for accessing equipment on top when the snow had gotten too high to use the main door. He told me it was bitterly cold, the coldest he could remember it being. though some of that was because he was so scared. He told me that part of him was being scared for the girl, but only part. He said another part of him could sense something wasn't right. That there was something strange and dangerous just beyond just the oddity of a stranger out there in the middle of the cold. Said that was why he shined the light over the edge of the roof before he went down to clear the door. Gene gave me and Matt a nervous smile at this point, taking another sip of his beer before setting it aside. He said most of it was buried in the snow outside the door, but looking down, he could make out the top of someone's body. Said it was huge, probably 500 pounds or more, with a segmented ivory shell like a lobster and furry white spider legs that sat tensed and ready. The highest arches like small drifts just breaking the snow surface. The worst part, though, was its head. Because it wasn't a head at all, really. Over 5 feet tall and upright. The head had a slim and delicate shape, covered in what looked like a dark poncho or cloak. Gene glanced between us and rubbed the side of his face. He said it could have been the face in that cloak. A woman's face. A beautiful woman. The most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. Shifting in his chair, he went on. But it saw him too. This look he got, it was all in a couple of seconds. By the time that thing noticed the light shining down, it turned its head and looked like a woman up towards him. He told me he'd been terrified by that point, frozen on the spot, and that some part of his brain was still working through, though she said something else to him. Try to get him to come down. Gene puffed out a breath, but instead it started to scream. He said the noise didn't come from the woman's mouth, but instead he saw puffs of snow along its body, like steam escaping a pot, and the air was filled with a terrible screech. He knew it was angry, and it was coming to get him. He got going then, made it to the hatch, locked it behind him, got his gun ready in case the thing made it inside. Said he heard movement on the roof, but nothing ever tried to get through the door or latch. He stayed awake until sunrise, and then he radioed for help, using the excuse that he'd gotten bad sick. Matt and I watched him wide-eyed and terrified as he gave a small laugh and shrug. And that wasn't it. At least for the most part. They came to get him. There was no sign of anything wrong outside, and he never told anyone else above him about it. Gene leaned forward towards the fire. Until one night he was in town drinking. He and a buddy, he buddied up to one of the locals. They were swapping bullshit for a while. And eventually he got comfortable enough that he told the guy what happened in the weather station. Told me his drinking buddy got real sober, real quick. Told him that he was real lucky to be sitting there to talk about it at all. I waved my hand at Gene like I was in class. So this dude knew what it was? Gene gave an uncertain nod. Maybe, at least a little. Guy told him there wasn't some fancy name for it, but that it's just something strange and deadly that lived up there. maybe other places too. He had heard a story over the past few years. He had some grandpa or whatever claimed to have seen one. Some people said it was an evil spirit. Others said it was some kind of animal. But we don't know or understand. But whatever it was smart. Smart as a person. And able to talk to you, to trick you. My boss just called it the liar. He said he'd gotten that from his buddy. I figured this was because it had the lure, the part of itself that it could make it sound like a person. But he said no. It was because, according to what he had been told, the thing had certain rules to follow. It only preyed on things that invited in, that had been fooled by it to one extent or another. And whether it said it was always a lie. And whatever it said, it was always a lie. Always. Sorry. He pointed his finger at me and Matt. Now that might sound obvious, but it's actually a pretty useful thing to remember. Because the way I remember it, it can't tell the truth. And it's compelled to talk, to lure, and to try to trick you into letting it in, so it can get you. So if you ask it the question right away, things it can't not answer, and things that give away its lie, you can figure out what it is without ever opening the door. Jean sat back and gave a grin. I just hope nothing comes scratching at Yellston tonight. I hadn't thought about Jean in some time, until 3 nights ago. Matt was diagnosed with leukemia at 14 and was gone 2 years later. And in the 20 years since I had seen or spoken to his family, over the couple times on the internet, and yet 3 nights ago, as I sat cold and panicked on the side of a dark road, Matt's uncle and that story came flooding back to me. I'd been driving in the worst snowstorm I'd ever seen, much less tried and traveled though, when I felt my car starting to slip on the road. For what felt like the 100th time, the snowstorm was unusual where I live, and I didn't have snow tires or chains, but I was driving as slow and as cautious as I thought the situation allowed. My wife was having contractions 3 hours away, and while I knew she'd already been checked in at the hospital, I wanted to be there as soon as I could get there safely. But I was an idiot. When the car hit a patch of ice, I overcorrected and slid off into a ditch. I was on the highway. It was the middle of the night in a snowstorm. I hadn't seen another car for at least half an hour. I tried to get the car back out on my own, but all that it got me was wet and cold. Cursing, I called for a wrecker, finally getting the third number I tried. They were coming, but it wouldn't be for 4 hours based on the weather, my location, and the calls ahead of me. Looking at the gas gauge, I decided to run the car just 10 minutes to build up warm air and sit in the dark a while to conserve fuel. Shivering, I tried to call the hospital to check on my wife and to get her a message as to what had happened, but I couldn't get the call to go through. I had plenty of charge left, but where I had 3 bars just moments before, now was down to 1 bar that flickered like a dying candle flame. As I watched, it went out a last time and didn't return. Maybe if I turned it off and turned it back. Please let me in, I'm so cold. I let out a scream and looked over the driver's side window, staring at a small boy, his dark eyes wide with pleading terror. As they met mine, please, mister, let me in. I could see what looked like snot frozen on his upper lip. His pale blue lips were trembling as he begged me for help. My God, how had he gotten out there? I needed to get him inside, turn on the car again, and then, suddenly, as a distant memory sparked in the recesses of my mind, the orange glow of fire pit lighting Gene's face as he told us about something that hunted out in the cold and dark. The liar. He looked back at the kid. This was ridiculous. That story wasn't possible, and this kid was gonna freeze to death if I didn't hurry up and do something. Yeah, he looked like he had a hooded jacket of some kind, but it wasn't. But it was well below freezing out there, and if, swallowing, I smiled at the pale blue. Swallowing, I smiled at the pale little boy staring in. How did you get out there? The boy stared at me for a moment. My mom, she got bad sugar and fell asleep. I couldn't wake her up. I went to get her help, but He was crying now, pressing a small hand against the glass. What the fuck was I waiting for? I unlocked the car, but I still hesitated to open the door. I thought back to the story Gene had told. The thing was called the liar because it had to lie. It just wanted to trick you. But if you asked it the right questions, you could see right through it. Taking a deep breath, I looked away from the boy. What's your name? Matthew? Please call me Matt. Please let me in. I feel like I'd been punched in the stomach. But when I looked up, the kid looked worried and scared. Not like he had just said the name of my dead childhood friend. It was just a coincidence, and I had to stop this and help him. My hand was on the latch, but I still hesitated. If Gene's story was real, what kind of question would work? Are you a little boy or a little human boy? His eyebrows went up slightly. Yeah, of course. Wait, that was dumb. If he was lying, he'd say yes, but if he was telling the truth, he'd say yes, so that didn't help. Okay. I was running out of time to waste on this. I could ask him if he wasn't a little boy, but that wasn't the same problem, wasn't it? If he was a little boy telling the truth, he'd say no. But if he was a monster, he had to lie. He'd also say no. Fuck me. I just needed to grow a spine and open the door. Please, I'm getting sleepy and it scares me. I'm so cold. Shuddering, I found the latch again, determined to finally open the door and let the boy in. Yet, in spite of that, I heard myself asking another question. You're not lying to me just to get me to open the door, are you? I hesitated at the latch, waiting for him to be confused by that oddly worded question or tell me no. Instead, there was a moment of silence. When I looked up, I could see the boy's lips were pressed in a thin line. Yes. I frowned, taking my hand away again. Yes, you're not lying to me, or yes, you are. His lips began to tremble again. Please let me in. I'm so cold. I needed to think. Him saying yes could mean anything. It was more how he'd reacted. almost like he was angry at the sign of being caught. Still, that wasn't proof of anything. I needed to just... Are you outside my car right now? When I met his eyes this time, I thought they seemed darker, colder. What? Please let me in. I felt a drill of fear skitter up my back. Answer my question, please. Are you outside of my car right now? The boy's sniffing stopped as a hard, cruel smile curled up the corner of his mouth. No. Then suddenly he was gone. I saw a blur of motion in the dark, and I heard the rustling of some distant brush as something large pushed its way into the woods. But there were no other signs of that child or anything or any other intruder as I sat alone in the freezing dark. After a couple of minutes, I got cell signal back and checked on Peggy. She was doing fine so far, and they had passed along my message that I'd be there soon. An hour later, the wrecker arrived. And if the man thought it was odd that I refused to get out of my car when he pulled me free of the ditch, he didn't seem to mind. As I write this, I'd just gotten back from holding our new baby. He's a healthy boy. Just after 2 days, I already love him so much. My wife asked if I wanted to name him Matthew, after my best friend growing up, but I shook my head quickly. After she's home and rested, I'll try to explain why. Besides, it doesn't matter what we call him. He'll grow up good and strong, and we'll be there to prepare him for the world that can be warm and wonderful, but also strange and cold. A world where not everything is as it seems. And he has to be very careful, especially when inviting a stranger from the dark. That was a long one. Hey David, what's going on, bud? Do I like Oregon? It's pretty here. It's a small town, you know, but yeah, it's very pretty here. Yeah, I can't complain. In the summer, it'll be nice going down to see the redwoods, the sequoias that are like this big. But yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty pumped. It's only 7:30. It's dark outside. Oh, how creepy would that have been if there was a face there? And I don't have the string to lower it anymore. There we go. Just pull it in a little, pull it down a little bit more. Yeah, whatever's there can see me. But yeah, so anyways, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna go smoke some smokies. If y'all want to talk to me in the Discord, I'll be in the Discord. Where is Alex's aquarium? Do you still here, bud? Also, I'm thinking about doing shorts. YouTube's got a new thing where you do shorts. And I think I want to do one about cryptids. I think that'd be kind of cool. Scratch and Bow on the go. GB peeps. Bo, how are you doing, bud? Oh, man. How are you doing? Thank you, Chappy. Blessed be. Blessed something. Bo, I don't know if you know this, but I'm now in Oregon. I got a new job. I look like I have a small face and big hair. Yeah, there we go. It's better. Oh no. Get behind my ears. You are alive. That's good, because I know that weather down there was shifty. And yes, I am okay. I had a sketchy drive across America, but I made it. Yeah. Y'all want to see what $50 in coins looks like? It's like quarters up to there, and then pennies up to there, or dimes up to there. I need to change my change. Yeah. But anyways, Bo, I know you just got here. Sorry, bud. I'm about to sign off. Figured I'd do a small video. My mom is okay. Yep, she's done with her chemo for now, and she's on another medication, and yeah. So hopefully the cancer goes away. For those of you who don't know, my mama has cancer. But Bo, I don't even know if you know, unless you know somehow. It's a magnet. I don't want to get it too close to the hard drive. But yeah, so I will be in the Discord if you guys want to chit chat. Anyways, thank you all for coming, and we'll do this again tomorrow. Alrighty? Oh no, what happened to my